And that's why hypnotherapy is so powerful. It's one of the most powerful, most transformative tools, and it happens so quickly because you link what you are aware of with what you're not aware of. You get answers to things that are stored in the body, and that's really where trauma lives. Trauma doesn't live here. It lives here. It lives in your body. And most of the time, you're not even aware that that is your program. You're not aware that you think this way and you have certain emotions and you react to certain things in your life because of a trauma that's stored in your body. The reason why many people still get stuck is because they'll talk about their feelings and they'll talk about it and they'll explain it and they'll logically unpack everything. And if you notice, that doesn't bring us to the root, because the root lives in your body and it needs to be vibrated out. You first of all need to have awareness that that's there, and you can't have awareness when you're not connected to your body. Welcome back, friends. I'm your host, Sherry Shaban, and with each episode, I am honored to be your coach and guide in the journey to make peace with food, fall in love with fitness, and ultimately yourself. My intention in each episode is to help you release the old story of who you are and step into the one you're always meant to be. We'll challenge conventional diet and fitness culture and understand the importance of tuning out all the shoulds they tell us to do and tuning into our own inner wisdom instead. What you focus on, you create more of. Through these conversations, you'll shift your focus from what you're supposed to be doing to who you want to be, so that health and fitness and ease around food is not just what you do, but who you are. And if you find that this conversation resonates with you today, then I want to invite you to join our free Make Peace with Food Facebook community at myfoodfreedomlifestyle.com, where you can connect with me and my team directly and access all the free trainings and resources we have for you so you can regulate your nervous system and make peace with food. And then also remember to share this episode with someone who you think needs to hear this today. The links are in the show notes. Are you frustrated that you keep reaching for food even when you're not hungry? In this episode, I'm going to open up about the deep layers of emotional eating and other unwanted eating behavior, the stuff we usually try to avoid or push down. And I talk about how being curious instead of judging ourselves can really help us understand what's actually going on beneath those cravings. I share how your nervous system, the culture that you grew up in, and even past experiences all come together to shape the way you eat. And it's not just about willpower. There's so much more to the story. You're going to hear some personal stories and example as I walk through the biological, psychological, and even environmental reasons you're turning to food. I also dive into how fear plays a big role in your choices and why it's so important to surround yourself with the right kind of support, the people and communities who help you grow instead of keep you stuck. And here's what real transformation looks like. It's small, consistent steps. It's understanding your own unique metabolic blueprint. And it's even learning how hypnotherapy can be used as a powerful tool for change and for shedding the layers of trauma, emotional dysregulations, and even your limiting beliefs. And some of the topics we're going to cover together today is number one, how curiosity wins over fear, and how this helps us transform our eating habits through a sense of self-understanding. And number two, we're going to understand cravings through a different lens, through the lens of biopsychosocial influence and environmental factors. And then we're going to also understand the complexities of disordered eating and trauma, and why it's not just this one-size-fits-all approach, but instead, we're going to learn how to address what's happening in our biology and hormones. We're going to learn how to address what's happening in our thoughts, in our psychology, in our perspective of the world. And finally, how our own environment, whether that's through physical places or through actual people we're spending time with, are a major trigger for our emotional eating. If you're listening to today's episode and you feel like food and dieting and weight and body image has completely taken over your life, has complete power over you, I hope this conversation brings you the comfort and inspiration that you're searching for. And remember, you're not alone. Healing is possible. If you've ever felt like you know exactly what to do, but you just can't bring yourself to do the things that you know to do, then I want to invite you to join me during my 3-day Break the Cycle Masterclass, where I'm going to be talking about how to overcome binge eating and emotional eating and how to regulate your nervous system so that you're no longer engaging in these unwanted eating behaviors. And this isn't a 3-day masterclass on weight loss, by the way. This is a 3-day masterclass on understanding how to break free from the cycle that's resulting in the side effect of weight gain. And that's the big difference, because you know this by now, that repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is called insanity. You know that dieting doesn't work. You know that it's not about hard discipline and getting yourself to be on another plan or hiring a nutritionist to tell you what to eat. You know all the things. Heck, I bet you can even write a book on all the things. But what you do want to uncover is, why is it that you continue to sabotage? Why does it feel like you're always on the wagon or off the wagon? And that's exactly why I'd love for you to join me during this 3-day Break the Cycle Masterclass that I'm giving completely free. Now you can register at sherryshaban.com/break the cycle. Again, sherryshaban.com/break the cycle. Again, it's completely free to join. And the goal during these 3 days together is to uncover why it is that you continue to engage in unwanted eating behaviors, even though you know exactly what to do. sherryshaban.com/break the cycle. All right, now let's get into it. I want to first of all thank you for being here, and thank you for being an amazing student, and a student who is showing up for yourself in a way where you are looking for answers. You're showing up with a sense of curiosity, which is the most powerful and the most beautiful energy to learn from. Because when we show up at certain things in our lives that are not exactly going the way that we want them to go, but we show up with this sense of judgment, this sense of anger, this sense of disappointment, and we are berating ourselves towards that highest version of ourselves, it's oftentimes the reason why we never achieve the results that we want. And so if you're here with a sense of curiosity, and you are holding a space for yourself that doesn't have any judgment, it's just wanting to learn more, wanting to really understand, okay, if it's not my fault that I do these things, then can I be curious as to understand why these are my tendencies? Why are these my patterns? I'm hearing these conversations that the reason why I'm doing the things that I'm doing is because of my nervous system. And what I'm also hearing is what's happening with my nervous system is it's stored a whole bunch of information. It's stored programs. It's stored hormonal programs that it's running, creating certain cravings for myself. It's also stored psychological programs that it's running that's based on thoughts and emotions and actions and behaviors. And then it's also running programs based on my environment. Meaning when I'm in certain environments and I'm around certain people or in certain places, there's also a program that runs that gets me to suddenly have cravings. Like when I'm in Mexico on an all-inclusive vacation, I never have this tendency to snack at night. Or I notice that I don't have certain cravings for alcohol or for cannabis when I am in an environment that's completely far away from them. So why is it that I am always berating myself and judging myself? What if I've spent these last 3 days getting curious to understand why I am doing the things that I'm doing? Because when we are so focused on an outcome without curiosity, we're actually going against our own nature. And think about this. If you are a parent, or you ever watch or observe kids, or you remember being a kid yourself, do you remember how everything was led by curiosity? Like everything you did was about what would happen if I did this, or how would this feel, or what if I touched this thing, or let me try this, and you're just curious. There was no expectation on anything needing to be a certain way. You were just curious about experiencing life. You were curious about experiencing things that you didn't know about yet. The unknown wasn't so scary. And I remember, like, as a kid, we would play that lava game where we would jump off of our couches onto cushions. And of course, my parents would be really upset because we would totally turn the living room upside down. But everything was about a sense of curiosity. I remember even doing silly things like jumping off the roof of my house because I was like, what would happen if I jumped off the roof of my house? And then I just kept getting higher and higher and higher and trying to tackle higher heights because I was curious as to what happened. But if you think about everything that you're doing right now, everything that you're doing is comfortable for you. Everything that you commit to doing every single day doesn't have that element of fear, doesn't have that element of uncertainty. And you don't even have to put curiosity into the equation because there's nothing to be curious about. Everything that we do right now as adults has shifted us into this place of such high expectations because we're no longer curious around understanding how things will feel, or what might happen if we try certain things, or why am I behaving the way that I'm behaving. And so what happens now as an adult is because we're no longer using curiosity to guide us, to lead us into learning and discovery. What we actually do now is look for certainty. Information can only come from a book, or from sources online, or from things that we know are certain. But anytime that we are met with uncertainty, we start to have a lot of fear. We have a lot of fear because we're no longer curious. And I've shared with you, what's behind any unwanted eating behavior is the emotion of fear. And we have fear because we're no longer curious. And we've decided that we need to control everything. We need to make sure that we have complete control over all of the things in our lives so that we have certainty, so that we can predict the outcome, so that we can prepare for it and then feel safe. And today I want to unpack that word for you, that word safety for you, and really get into why fear is the driver behind all of your unwanted eating. Fear is the driver behind nighttime snacking. Fear is the driver behind not going 4 seconds. Fear is the driver behind not overeating. Fear is the driver behind even binge eating and emotionally eating and mindlessly eating. Fear is the driver. And again, I started this conversation off by telling you that it's our natural tendency to be curious. And so you may be listening and feeling like, oh my God, every time I sit on one of these master classes, it makes a lot of sense, but it's a lot of information. And I'm sitting here like with the how, like, okay, so all of it makes sense, but how can I do this? How can I do this? How can I do this? And I don't want you to get into the how can I do this? I actually want you to move away from that and start asking yourself, well, what would happen if I just got more curious? What would happen if instead of asking myself, how am I going to do this? I actually start asking who? Instead of the how, I'm going to ask who. Because when your dishwasher breaks at home, or your air conditioning is no longer working, you don't say, well, how am I going to fix it? Let me go on YouTube and figure out how I'm going to do this for myself. You start to think about who. Who is going to support me with this? Who can I call to come fix this? I need to create a website. Sure, if I ask myself, how am I going to do it? And I try to do it myself, it may take me months and months and months and months and months and months to do it. And even when I do it, it's never going to be the same work and output as if I had hired someone who knew how to do it. And that's another part of curiosity. We're just projecting our curiosity in the wrong direction. We are always focused on how. And the how is impossible when we are in a space of uncertainty. When we've never done something before, there's no way that our mind can figure it out. How am I going to do this? I don't know how to do it. Well, how and where am I and how? And all that does is create more of that fear. And then that fear drives more of that unwanted behavior. And so today, as I'm sharing with you, I'm about to recap everything we've been talking about on day 1 and day 2. I'm going to recap all of that. And your mind is going to be like, how? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Well, I want you to hold that sense of curiosity. And instead of the how, I want you to plug in the who. Like, who do I have to be around? Who do I have to listen to? Who do I have to learn from? Who do I have to be in a space with if all of this is going to happen? Because today we're going to be talking about environment. We're going to talk about the sociology, the social aspect of why you have the cravings that you have. And so before we jump into that, I actually want to pop quiz you a little bit. I want to pop quiz you. And I know we've got a beautiful group here that I've joined in today. And I'm curious, what are your takeaways so far? What are your takeaways so far? What have you learned from day 1 and day 2? And I would especially love to hear from those who've also joined the Rapid Release Masterclass and get curious around what additional information did you learn on Break the Cycle that may have expanded a little bit of what you learned from Rapid Release. So share with me in the chat. Share with me in the chat. What have you learned? What are your takeaways so far? What are your takeaways so far? We've been talking about the biopsychosocial contribution to cravings and unwanted eating. We've been talking about how your unwanted eating, your emotional eating, comes from a program that your nervous system has stored in your biology, in your psychology, and in your sociology, in your environment. So tell me, what have you taken away so far? What have you taken away so far in a form that can be helpful to you? In a form that can be helpful to you. And we've got 48 minutes together. And I can wait for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, waiting for comments in the chat. So share with me, what's come up for you? What's come up for you? Sherry is pushing you into uncertainty right now. Sherry's pushing you into the uncertainty. Melody says the biological aspect is still so impressive to me. Yeah, and Melody, can you expand on that a little bit? What's impressive about it? What's impressive about it? And I love that Melody has a background in medicine. She's a nurse. And so she's like, she knows her stuff. So I'm super curious, Melody, what do you mean by that? If you can share a little bit more. And Martine says, I have to watch the replay in the second day, but for the biological part, it resonates a lot to me. It makes so much sense. It gives me power in a direction where I can put my effort. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes. Yes, I love that. The power and a direction to put your effort, And why that is so resonating with me right now as I read this comment, Martine, is because the effort that we generally hear, especially when you're working with psychologists and nutritionists who are experts in helping you overcome, and look at all my little air quotes, by the way, who are experts in helping you overcome disordered eating, most of the time, what they tell you to do actually requires a lot of discipline. And it boggles my mind because most of them also give you a meal plan to follow. Like it's like 9 out of 10 of them will give you a meal plan to follow. Prepare your meals, eat 3 meals, and then have discipline and then go for a walk. Like every time you have a binge, you go brush your teeth or go walk for a walk, go for a walk or go drink some water. And that's amazing. That's amazing because like, did I really need anyone to tell me that? Did I really need anyone to tell me that? Or am I beyond aware that when I have these cravings, they're freaking intense? They're super intense, sometimes so intense that I can't actually grab a hold of them. That when I am craving sugar, it's like it wins. It wins. And why is it that many people who are diabetic know what sugar is going to do to them, but why can't they stop? It's not because they don't know. It's not because they don't know any better and no one's told them. It's because there's a biological driver. And there is a psychological driver. And there is an environmental driver. And when they address these 3 things, then of course they can actually overcome their cravings. But so long as the hormones are cycled in the way that I've shared on day 1 to create those cravings for you, it's very hard to stop. It's very hard to stop. It's like you want to sleep. It's very hard to keep yourself awake for a week because your biology will always win. Your biology will always win. And the same thing too around psychology. On the Rapid Release Masterclass, I talked to you about certain patterns that we learn in our childhood. We learn certain patterns to unconsciously keep ourselves safe. And this could be parental disapproval syndrome, that we'll feel safe as long as we're seen and we're getting high approval from our parents. I'll be safe if I'm a high achiever and I get straight A's and I become all these things that are expected of me. And we also talked about an unconscious death urge, where unconsciously there's this feeling that you've already given up, that you find that there's no point anyways in doing anything because, well, what, I'm gonna die anyway, whatever, why bother? And then there's also something called birth trauma, where unconsciously you believe that the world is a violent, dangerous place full of people that are trying to harm you, that are trying to hurt you, that you actually unconsciously left that womb of safety and comfort and nutrients and having everything supplied for you in a very controlled, comfortable environment, and abruptly and violently entered the world, which is cold and dark and full of strangers and uncertainty. And so those of us who have that birth trauma always believe the worst in people. They always believe someone's out to get them. They have a hard time trusting people. They have a hard time trusting society. They have a hard time being vulnerable. They have a hard time being in full expression of themselves. And so when you understand that these are patterns that create fear, all 3 of these patterns that I just told you about create fear, create unconscious fear. And the unconscious fear that we have is going to drive us to cope, to unwanted eating behaviors, because that is the lens in which we see the world at all times. Then you also understand that it's not as simple as preparing my meals and following my meal plan, and that should help me overcome emotional eating. And it's really amazing because if I'm being super honest, I get frustrated sometimes. I actually have to say I get angry. My emotion is anger. My emotion is anger. When I see people who are struggling with binge eating or emotional eating, or who are on diets, off diets, who are nighttime snacking, who are overeating or compulsively overeating, and they've actually gone to seek out professional help. They've invested not just in psychologists and therapists, they've also invested in trainers. They've invested in nutritionists. And years later, they're like, oh, I got a little bit better. And that just completely boggles my mind. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right. Because we're told that this person is supposed to have complete authority over me. This person is supposed to be able to help me achieve these things. And we're actually seeking help in things that are outside of us, when really the answer is within. The answer is within. The answer is in your biology. That's what has to be addressed. Your hormones have to be addressed, and your dopamine reward system has to be addressed. And the answer is also in your psychology. And that's not just talking about what's bothering you right now in life. It's actually getting into what's in the body. And that's why hypnotherapy is so powerful. It's one of the most powerful, most transformative tools. And it happens so quickly because you link what you are aware of with what you're not aware of. You get answers to things that are stored in the body. And that's really where trauma lives. Trauma doesn't live here. It lives here. It lives in your body. And most of the time, you're not even aware that that is your program. You're not aware that you think this way and you have certain emotions and you react to certain things in your life because of a trauma that's stored in your body. And so the reason why many people still get stuck is because they'll talk about their feelings and they'll talk about it and they'll explain it and they'll logically unpack everything. And if you notice, that doesn't bring us to the root, because the root lives in your body and it needs to be vibrated out. You first of all need to have awareness that that's there, and you can't have awareness when you're not connected to your body. And so we're going to be doing something like this together today. We're going to be doing an inner child healing today. And it's going to bring us to some of these traumatic events that we may not even be aware of. And by the way, for those of us that are listening in today who have endured different types of trauma, I'm going to share with you that where we're going today is going to be a little bit more surface. Since this is a group and I don't actually know all of you on a very personal level, we're going to just be in more of a surface place, because I just want you to be able to connect with this part of you, and you'll be able to do some of this work on your own. When you are in the community and when you are working with me one-on-one in the Make Peace with Food Platinum program, we get to know each other pretty well. And I know exactly where to go and the depths of where we're going to be going. And we can also hold space for a longer period of time to have whatever that needs to come up. So my intention for you today is just to bring you to meet that younger version of you that is still psychologically making all of these choices that you are currently unaware of. So put a 1 in the chat if you're down for that. Put a 1 in the chat if you're down for that. And I hope that, again, you meet this with that sense of curiosity. I hope that you meet that with that sense of curiosity. All right, awesome. Super happy that you guys are all here and going to be a part of this. Glad to see a 1. And then put a 2 in the chat if you're not down for that. I also welcome that. Put a 2 in the chat if you're like, nope, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I will not get offended. I will hold that space for you too. So let me just read a few more of these comments here. So Janice says, I need to stop the chase for answers and focus totally on Make Peace with Food, biopsychosocial. Yeah, Janet, and I'm so happy you're in the community, and it's super interesting because we can be down this rabbit hole, always looking for answers, always looking for the how. And what I've done in my experience of education and wanting to learn and wanting to continue to not just work on myself personally, but also work on myself professionally, is I've always sought out the who. Like, I know what I want to do, I know what I want to do, but who, like, who do I go to for that? Who can I go to for that? There's got to be a coach that I can learn hypnotherapy from. And I sought out that person, and that's who I learned hypnotherapy from. I couldn't have learned hypnotherapy online. I couldn't have learned hypnotherapy because I read a whole bunch of articles or read a few books. I mean, that's easy for anyone to do, but it was the who that I learned from. And the same thing too, when it comes to our fitness, we're always looking for the how. And there's this unconscious belief that we all share, which is, I should be able to do it myself. Well, it's my body and it's my health. I should be able to figure this out. I should. And now how am I going to do that? Well, how am I going to do that? Well, how am I going to do that? And the question is, how long have you been on a search for that? How long have you been on a search for that? And what would happen if you decided to stop focusing on the how by getting more information and reading more and overwhelming yourself with material, knowing that all you do is just get more information, yet you still don't know how to take action, and instead lean into the who. And you're here on day 3, you're here in person or you're watching the replay. So let me ask you, what is the resistance? What is the resistance? Is it ego because you think you should be able to do this yourself and it's embarrassing and you haven't already? Which was a true conversation I had with someone just a couple weeks ago. I'm super embarrassed, Sherry, to be talking about this. I'm super embarrassed that my whole life has been about my diet and weight, and it's been a constant struggle. I'm so embarrassed that I've spent thousands of dollars on nutritionists and trainers and programs and shakes, and I've done everything. And I'm super embarrassed that this is a conversation that I still have to have. Meanwhile, this is a person sitting in front of me who is a project manager who's crushing everything else in her life. And yet this is the one thing that she's feeling super embarrassed about. And then I asked her, well, what do all those other things that you've tried have in common? And she said, well, it was all stuff like how to eat and how much to move and how to eat and how much to move. I'm like, right, which is all the external stuff. This is someone telling you, follow this program. This is someone telling you, eat this way. But what you haven't done is the inner work. The inner work, which is what's going on in my biology. What's going on in my biology? Because I know I eat enough, but then at the end of the night, why do I have these cravings? Or why do I have these cravings for sugar? Or why do I tend to overeat? Or why do I tend to eat when I'm not hungry? And why is it that I can do keto Monday to Friday, but on the weekends, I need to take some time off from keto? That's also your biology. And so that's in the inner work. That's really understanding your hormonal patterns. And when we're talking about hormones, this has nothing to do with estrogen. This has nothing to do with menopause. This has nothing to do with perimenopause. It has everything to do with cortisol, which comes from the nervous system when you are triggering yourself into protection mode, released by your adrenal glands, which is actually getting your body to have sugar available at all times. And make sure that sugar is going to be stored in the belly. And if that's what's suddenly happening in your world, if you're suddenly, oh my God, I don't know why I reached the stage of my life and all of a sudden I have a tummy and I never had a tummy before. It must be perimenopause. It must be menopause. And I'm going to argue that. And I'm going to tell you, I bet you've also reached a period of your life where now, damn, shit's getting real. Like people around you are getting sick and passing away, or maybe you've gone through a very difficult divorce, or maybe you've got some stuff going on with your kids, or maybe there's financial stuff going on. Because around that time where it's perimenopause is also that time in your life where things are getting serious. Things are getting serious now. When we were younger, we had no responsibilities. Like life was like a jam all the time. And now, like, whoa, like I've got aging parents. I'm seeing people around me pass away. I'm facing a lot of challenges and different things in my life. And that just so happens to coincide with my age. But I'm going to blame it on my hormones, which everyone says must be menopause related. It must be my cycle related. And again, when we can move away from that and look at the whole picture, because this is what health and fitness in the conversation that we have with it today tells us. Health and fitness tells us it's this one thing. It's this one thing. It says this is the one reason. And what it does is it segments the problem. It segments the problem. And the body doesn't work that way. You've got hormones going on right now. You've got different thoughts and emotions going on right now as you're listening to me. You've got things happening in your environment. You've got also things happening in your social world right now. Things happening with your kids or your families or at work. All of that is who you are showing up on today's call. You're not just food and excrement, which is funny because that's what the fitness space tells us. It's just your food. It's just going to be what you eat and what you consume. And so when you understand, oh my God, like this is the missing thing. The missing thing is I have to look at everything. And maybe for me, it's really mostly my biology that I have to work on. While for someone else, maybe it's mostly their psychology that they have to work on. And for a completely different person, maybe it's their sociology. Maybe it's actually their environment. And this can also change throughout your life. It's not just one thing and it stays that one thing. But what's beautiful about this conversation and why this work is so incredibly profound and important to me is because everyone that I sit down with who is looking for help around releasing weight always feels like they're doing something wrong. They've been doing something wrong this whole time. It is their fault. They have a slow metabolism, or things just don't work for them, or they're just not motivated enough, or even worse, that nothing will work. And I'm going to agree with that last part if you are still looking for the right way to eat. Instead of looking for your way to eat, which is your metabolic blueprint. That's why I call it that. It's your metabolic blueprint. And yours won't look like mine. And it won't look like Janet's, and it won't look like Martine's or Patty's. And it won't look like Melody's. But it's going to look like something that you can follow with ease that helps you regulate your hormones so that your cortisol is regulated, your insulin is regulated, and you're not having these spikes of blood sugar and insulin and then go hypoglycemic and then get hungry and have cravings, and you're not needing to overeat and disrupt your leptin hormone and your ghrelin hormone, the two hormones that both control satiety and hunger, which then influence things like thyroid and estrogen metabolism. You see where those two stand? Thyroid and estrogen metabolism, that's where they stand. And it's like this domino effect. It's not estrogen created all this. It is cortisol, insulin, and then especially leptin disruption. And then all of a sudden now I've got issues with estrogen dominance and I've got issues with my thyroid. And those are like that is like the last part of the equation. And so you can take the medications for that. You can do all these things. And I'm not here to interfere with any medical protocol, but what I am also here for is to say, let's address the behavior. You can do all these things, but let's also address the behavior. Let's also understand why, like what is the root? Let's get curious. Let's get curious as to why this is happening. Why is this happening? Let's get away from the how. Let's focus on the why. And then let's find the who. Who does this? Who can support you? Who can support you? Okay, so let's take a moment now and just reflect on what's going on in our current life. Okay, before we close our eyes and get into our body, I just want to start here. And we're going to do this for about 8 minutes. And it's amazing what can happen in 8 minutes. And so I want you to sit with your feet grounded firmly on the floor. which means uncross your legs if they are crossed. You can place your hands face down, palm down rather, on your lap, on your knees, and then just lift up your shoulders and just let them fall wherever they are. Don't force them forward or backwards, just let them feel relaxed. And just without judgment, as though you are watching a movie of your life. As though you're watching a movie of your life. What's going on in your world right now that is taking away your peace? What's going on? What's taking away your peace right now? And just looking at all the aspects of your sociology right now, of your social environment. Your social environment that includes your direct family, your extended family, your neighbors, your work, your coworkers, your customers, your clients. Your home. How's it feeling in your home right now? Your safe place. Does it feel like a safe place? And just observing. You're watching the movie of your current life right now. And in that movie, I want you to also bring your awareness to what you have around you that triggers you in your physical environment. Is that people? Is there somebody that's always triggering you? Is it a parent? Is it a spouse? Is it something that's in your fridge, in your freezer, in your cabinets, in your kitchen? And just noticing. And when you feel called, when you feel ready, go ahead and close your eyes. Go ahead and close your eyes. And just allowing your body to feel that emotion. What is the emotion? And maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's overwhelm, maybe it's stress, maybe it's worry, maybe it's doubt. And I wonder if there is a root of fear in any of these emotions that you may be experiencing the most lately. Is there an element of fear? And as soon as you hit on that, where do you feel this in your body? Just notice where you're feeling this in your body. Is it in your chest? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your solar plexus? In your hands? On your skin? And just hold on to this emotion right now. Hold on to the sensation in your body and go ahead and dial it down to maybe a 30%, just so that you can feel it. Just that you can feel it, but not enough to want to avoid it or escape it right now. Just noticing where it's at. And now that you've dialed it down, let's go back. Let's go back in time to that first moment that you felt this same feeling. and allow that first memory to surface. And stay in your body. Stay in your body. Don't go in your mind and try to think of when it must have been. Stay connected to your body. Feeling that 30% of that emotion and just going back, connecting it to a time in the timeline where you remember feeling that first memory. And there's a movie. There's another movie. There's a record that's also playing. And I wonder, can you see that movie too? Can you see that younger version of you having thoughts about something that is driving that same emotion, that same feeling in your body right now? Driving her to make a decision, or driving him to make a decision. A decision about life, a decision about the way things are. Or a decision about who you are. And notice how you're watching. You're watching this movie, you're observing. You are witnessing. You're witnessing. And now let's come back to our present moment. Let's come back to our present moment. Back into your room with that snapshot. That you now have an opportunity to get curious about. And with every breath now, feeling more and more awake. Wiggling your fingers and your toes. Preparing to open your eyes. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And just staying with that. And just staying with that. And I wonder what came up for you in that short little process that we just did together. If you're open to sharing in the chat, I'd love to hold space for you. I wonder what came up. Were you able to go back to a time I felt like I wasn't enough, confusion, anxiety, overwhelm. Elisa, wow, I think I actually dozed off because I don't remember any of it. I'll have to watch the replay later. Yeah, and Elisa, what's really interesting about dozing off during these processes is that your subconscious mind is still at work. So it's completely normal that you may sometimes during a hypnotherapy session fall asleep, but your subconscious mind is still processing and doing work. And what I always say about any technique is the goal or the success is not having done it right and having followed exactly what was being guided. However, the success of it is you being curious as to what you experienced. For example, I wasn't able to connect with an emotion is a sign that there's something that you're blocking. Or I wasn't able to feel it in my body is a sign that you're numbing something. I wasn't able to go back in time is also a sign that there is avoidance of certain periods of your life. And so it's all successful. And when we do these processes, it's an opportunity for you to get curious around how your body's responding to certain things. What is it avoiding? What is it embracing? What is it resisting? What is it resisting? Because the resistance has just as much information for us, whether it's conscious or unconscious. Because if there's this part of you that's like, this is so stupid, like, why are we doing this? Like, oh my God, this is... That's also something to process. That's a conscious resistance. And so I want to thank you so much for sharing this experience with me and for participating. And if you go back and do the replay and watch the replay, or if you are doing the replay, then it's an opportunity for you to try again and notice how what we did is we connected the body with an emotion and then we went back in time to bring it up. And this is that first step of unraveling and unpacking and letting things unfold so that you can start to see all of the things that you've stored in your unconscious mind that are still continuing to be at play. Especially if you did connect with a story in the past, which was when I was 7 years old, this was said to me, or this happened with my mom or my dad, or this happened in the classroom, and then this happened and I felt not enough, or I felt rejected, or I felt hurt or betrayed. And now I realize that's still the same story that I'm running right now in my current world, because it's just a pattern. It's in my nervous system and it's a pattern that continues to play. And I'm noticing that I'm getting triggered from the things in my environment. And so the more that you do this, the more that you practice this and practice connecting with the body, the easier it starts to get. So I hope that this has inspired you today. I want to thank you again for your time, and I'm sending you so much love. And Elisa joined this morning, and Elisa, so happy that you are a part of this, and I'm so happy to hold space for you and to be your coach and to be your guide on this journey. And I look forward to continuing this conversation in upcoming master classes and also on the Make Peace with Food podcast. So thank you, and thank you so much for allowing me to do what I love most, which is to support you towards that highest version of yourself. I'll see you soon.